Welcome to Week 10 Boom Bust Fantasy Football Show, brought to you by Fantasy Football Advice Network and Sellout Crowd. I'm Corey, and I'm joined by my brother, Kyle. We're going to break down some booms and busts at each position for your Week 10 fantasy football matchups. Now, what is a boom and what is a bust? It's whether they exceed or fall short of their projected point totals for the week based off of Fantasy Pros' full PPR projections. So, Kyle, let's go ahead and start breaking it down for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with my boom QB of the week. I know Sellout Crowd fans are going to love this one. Baker Mayfield. Woo! Boomer Sooner, baby. He's got Tennessee this week. Tennessee is 26th in the league versus fantasy quarterbacks. So he's projected 235 yards passing. They got him down for a touchdown and a half as kind of the over-under, 16.6 fantasy points. I think 235 is on the lower spectrum of what he's been getting in games. I think he overshoots that yardage total, but I think he gets 2, maybe even 3 touchdowns against Tennessee this week, having such a good matchup. So I definitely think there's room for him to blow past this projection this week.
Listen, Baker's been solid this year, with the exception of 1 week. It's literally just been 1 week, and otherwise has been super solid. So he's playing with confidence. The running game has gotten going. They've gotten Rashad White going, and they're playing Tennessee, who hasn't been as strong a defense as we thought they were going to be, just all around. So, yeah, I like this matchup for Baker, and he is balling out right now. He's old school Baker, and I love it.
And I have to pat us on the back here because he went to Cleveland out of the draft, did good, got into playoffs for the first time in however long, didn't work out long term, ended up in Carolina and LA, didn't work out. Me and you were defending him, tooth and nail against everybody.
Yep.
And we're just like, get him on a good team. Just get him on a good team and see what he can do. And here he is, balling out just like we knew Baker could. So I'm going to give us a big pat on the back for this one.
And if his defense can do their job, then he's going to have more wins on the season too. So that's not on him, though. But fun story, went to the Thunder game on Wednesday, went out to dinner beforehand, and happened to sit next to a table of some OSU fans. But I did overhear them talking about how they used to hate Baker, and now they catch themselves rooting for him. They actually kind of like him, and they're rooting for him in the NFL, and he's playing good this season, and they're enjoying it. And I was like, ooh, Baker's winning over OSU fans?
Yeah.
Man, I got to love it right there.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, let's move on to your bust real quick.
Moving on to the bust. Now, this one hurts for Sellout Crowd fans and myself. Kyler Murray. And it's not because I don't love Kyler Murray. I do. I just don't like him this week in his first game back from that knee injury versus Atlanta, who's actually a pretty good defense. They are 25th against QBs, but I don't trust him off that knee until he gets up to game speed a little bit. They got him projected for 220 yards passing, touchdown and a half, and then 34 yards rushing. I think that's even pretty generous on the rushing side. I think he'll be a little more judicious about his runs, a little more conservative with it coming out of the gate, first game. He's been practicing in full for a couple of weeks, but game speed's just different, right? So he might get a touchdown. I think he hits the under on the touchdown and a half there. The 220 yards, I think he can get that. But I think the rushing and maybe the touchdowns won't quite be there. James Conner's supposed to be back. I think they'll lean on him a little bit to kind of take some of the pressure off of Kyler. So really don't see him having a great game and meeting this 18.1. He's actually projected more fantasy points than Baker this week, and I don't think he's going to get to it.
That's probably just based off of matchup alone would be my guess. But
yeah,
look at you taking us on a roller coaster of emotions here.
Dude, for real.
High with Baker, low with Kyler here. Real heartbreaker. But I agree, too. Trusting Kyler coming back from that injury, the speed of the game is just different than practice, right? And quarterback is a very you kind of have to be in a groove. And so you see these players get in a groove. You see it at the beginning of a season with just players that didn't play preseason, right? And they come out in the regular season, and it takes these quarterbacks, Joe Burrow, a little bit to get into a groove before they hit that groove. And Kyler Murray has had no chance to do that. It makes me a little nervous. Like I said, Atlanta, that defense is probably underrated, and so yeah, that's I'm not starting first week back. I just can't trust it.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to your running backs.
Yep. Our boom running back of the week, Mr. James Cook. He started the year off pretty hot. He's had a couple of down weeks. This week, he plays Denver, who is the top matchup in the league for running backs. So I think he has a really good chance at a bounce back. Not to mention it's on Monday night. We love our fantasy players that are playing under the lights in prime time. He's projected 60 yards rushing, 19 yards receiving for 12.6 fantasy points. I think he has the potential to blow right past that and double it at a minimum. I love him against Denver in this matchup this week because they're gonna have a big lead, and they're just gonna be feeding the ball, right? So, yeah, I'm all about me some James Cook this week.
And not only is it under lights, it's at home. Like you said, they're going to be nursing a little bit of a lead. It's all looking good. There's going to be scoring opportunities because, again, Denver not going to be the strongest defense. They played out of their minds against Kansas City. I don't think that team as a whole can do that again. So I like Buffalo in this game, and I think the script of the game plays into James Cook's advantage here.
Well, and Patrick Mahomes was sick when they played Denver.
There you go. We'll put it on that.
So that definitely helped them overcome Kansas City.
And I don't think Taylor Swift was present. So they had two things going against them there.
But also, like, in this projection, they're not projecting to get a touchdown. I think he gets in the end zone this week.
Yeah,
I think that helps him, overcome this projection pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's swiftly move on to your bust.
All right, so my bust running back, Mr. Alexander Mattison. Listen, I know Cam Akers just tore his Achilles, and so it's his full backfield again. But the key this week is matchup. They play New Orleans. New Orleans is 5th against running backs. That's a tough matchup. He's projected 62 rushing yards, 3 receptions for 20 yards receiving, 13.0 fantasy points. I don't think he'll get to double digits. I think they'll stifle him. I think they'll stick with the pass because that's how they're going to beat New Orleans. And I think Josh Dobbs ends up taking quite a few rushes into his own hands as well. Even with Madison, even in good matchups, he's been pretty inconsistent and pretty inefficient with his touches. So, I don't see him even getting to double-digit fantasy points this week.
All the other games where he hasn't scored double-digit fantasy points has been Philadelphia, San Francisco, Green Bay. So anytime he plays a halfway decent run defense, he doesn't really do well. And I know you mentioned Cam Akers not being in there anymore, with his injury. But some of these lower scoring games came early in season before Cam Akers was on the roster, right? Yep. He still wasn't producing that great.
Exactly.
So I don't trust Alexander Mattison in what has seemed to be a pass first offense all season. And like you said, Dobbs, I think, takes some of that rushing away from him too. So I'm just not trusting Alexander Mattison against the New Orleans defense this week either.
Yeah.
All righty, guys. Want to invite you to join fantasyfootballadvice.com. You can go over there and join the fantasy football community. Give advice, get advice, post polls and read articles and watch videos, listen to podcasts, all that good stuff. There's some other tools on there for you as well. So free to join, go over there, interact, and have a good time. It's the only social media network 100% dedicated to fantasy football. So join us over there and have some fun. All righty, Kyle, let's move on to your wide receivers.
Yeah, man, my boom wide receiver, Mr. Christian Kirk. Now, I do think San Francisco, which is who they play, comes out of their bye week, ticked off. They lost 3 games in a row. They're going to come out wanting to prove something, and healthy and fresh. And I think they're going to get after Trevor Lawrence all day long. Trevor Lawrence already takes a bunch of sacks, but I think they're going to get after him all day long, which means his, swifty little slot receiver here, his little safety blanket, will probably be peppered with quite a few short little passes, little quick timing routes, et cetera, et cetera. San Fran is 27th against receivers, but they do make it difficult on quarterbacks.
Yep.
So that's why they're bad against slot receivers, especially, is because everybody has to pass to them so fast. So Christian Kirk is projected 6 catches for 66 yards, like half a touchdown is kind of the over-under, 14.1 fantasy points. I think he blows past that. I think he does get a touchdown. I think he hits 100 yards receiving, and I think he hits probably close to 8 to 10 grabs. I think he's just going to be hit with targets all day long.
I agree, and I think that the Jags are going to be down and they're going to have to pass a lot. I think to keep up with San Francisco in this game. So I like that for him. And, Christian Kirk has been consistent all year, right?
Yeah.
If you erase week 1 for him where he had, 1.9 fantasy points, Christian Kirk has been definition of consistent this year. So
aside from week 1, his last game against, I think it was Pittsburgh, right?
Yes.
Was his worst performance of the year, and it was still 9.5.
Yep.
He's
had a great season.
That's pretty consistent.
And he looks fantastic after catching the ball. His yards after catch are fantastic. So just get the ball in his hands quick and let him do his thing. I agree. I think this plays right into his hands with these quick passes, trying to get out of Trevor Lawrence's hands as quick as possible. So like that. All righty, let's go on to your bust wide receiver.
Yeah, the bust wide receiver, Mr. Davante Adams. I was already kind of on the fence with this guy. Wasn't really targeting him in drafts coming into the season. So far, he's proven me to be right.
Yeah, I have 0 stock in Davante Adams.
And then this week, Aiden O'Connell against the number 1 defense versus wide receivers. I really think he's going to have a tough time scoring any points. He's projected 5 catches for 63 yards, and the over-under is half a touchdown, 13.4 fantasy points. This is a case that, kind of like Mttison, I don't think he'll hit double digits.
I'm avoiding this as much as possible. Davante Adams has been disappointing all but 1, maybe 2 games all year.
Yeah.
Like you said, his quarterback woes there are holding him back some too. That team's just kind of a mess right now. And so it's not the time you want to be going up against a Jets defense when you're having all those issues. So I'm avoiding this at all costs. I can't trust Davante Adams in my lineup, and I'm not doing it this week. This isn't the week I'm trying to get cute. Start Davante Adams for sure. So, alrighty, who is your boom tight end?
So my boom tight end, which is going to sound silly because of who my bust QB was, it's Trey McBride. It is possible. Fantasy's weird like that. Quarterback can have a bad game, but one of his receivers can still do well.
And vice versa.
Yeah, and I really think Trey McBride is going to be the safety valve that Kyler needs in this first week back. So I really think he's going to catch quite a few. And Atlanta is 13th highest receiving yards allowed to tight ends, 10th highest fantasy points per game. So it's a good matchup for him as well. He's only projected 4 catches for 42 yards, 9.8 fantasy points. I think he ends up with a touchdown this week. I think he gets probably closer to 60 or 70 yards, and I think 5 or 6 catches is doable. So he's not going to blow this projection out of the water necessarily, but I think he'll get you closer to 14 or 15 than the 9 or 10 that they have him projected.
I mean, Trey McBride's a great tight end, great receiving tight end.
Yeah.
And Kyler Murray does throw to tight ends. I mean, Ertz has had great success there, and I think Trey McBride is more talented. So I think Kyler Murray, I think you're right. I think he used him as more of a safety valve this week. And I think Trey McBride kind of eats this week with Kyler coming back. So good talent. And it's not like anyone is really, I mean, he doesn't have anyone challenging him for tight end reps, really. So
yeah,
he gets a lot of reps, gets a big snap percentage. So
absolutely. Yep. So my bust tight end.
Yeah.
And I swear I didn't do this on purpose. I didn't even realize it until I was putting the slides together after I picked my players.
That's what I said. Vice versa.
So my bust tight end is Cade Otton, who goes with my boom quarterback.
Yeah.
But Tennessee is 12th fewest receiving yards to tight ends, 5th fewest fantasy points per game to tight ends. The only thing this team can stop on defense is tight ends. Baker Mayfield has so many other weapons on this team, he's not going to need them. So, and also I forgot, Tennessee's the only team in the league that hasn't allowed a score to a tight end yet also. Only team left. So definitely going to be a rough game for Otton. He's projected 3 catches for 32 yards, 7.7 points. I think he won't even get to that. That's how much I think he'll struggle this week against Tennessee.
That's a big time struggle. And Cade Otton's great. He's got great rapport going with Baker right now. But like you said, Baker just won't need him, right? He's got other weapons that he can use that apparently Tennessee can't cover. So he's going to use them, right? I mean, when you've got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin out there and Tennessee can't cover them, then why aren't you using them? So, yeah, I think, again, it's more of just a game script type thing. I don't think Cade Otton gets that either. That's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, Godwin and Evans, but also Rachaad White. Rachaad White's been on fire. He's been running well. They haven't been stopping the run that well. He's been elite, receiving out of the backfield. Otton may just be blocking a lot this week.
Yep. Game script. It just is what it is.
Exactly.
So, all righty. Let's move on. That will do it for all of our booms and busts for the week. So let's move on to some streamers really quick, starting out with a good kicker streamer option for the week.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Mr. Jason Myers for Seattle, playing against Washington. He was really good last year when Seattle was playing really, really well. He's been a little inconsistent this year, so he's on waivers in a lot of leagues. This week playing Washington, I think there's a potential for them to put up quite a few points. So I like him as a good bye week fill-in if you have one of the kickers for a team on a bye, or if you just stream from the beginning of the year like I do. Like, I love this matchup.
Scoring opportunities, scoring opportunities, scoring opportunities.
Exactly.
And that Washington defense, they're going to bend, they're going to break, but there's going to be sometimes where they bend and don't break. But they just shipped off their 2 best defensive players.
Yeah, exactly.
They've kind of given up, it seems. So, that offense is going to be able to move the ball quite well, and they're going to be in scoring position. So whether it's extra points or field goals, he's going to be scoring points. So, and I feel like that's going to be just a thing for kickers playing against Washington from now on.
Yeah.
So, alrighty, let's move on to your streaming defensive option for the week.
So my streaming defense of the week, actually for the second week in a row, because these 2 matchups were so good. Paid off last week, sticking with them this week, the Las Vegas Raiders. They play the Jets this week. And if you notice, I didn't just put Crosby on there this time, though he is front and center.
Front and center.
But I put the whole defense up. This like 4 out of 5 games in a row now. They're getting double-digit points as a defense. They're crushing it.
Yeah.
They're playing really, really good defense, and it's because they're getting after the quarterback so consistently. And this week they play another accident-prone, sack-prone quarterback in Zach Wilson and the Jets. So, yeah, give me some Raiders. And they've been playing so good the last 4 weeks, and they're still on waivers in so many leagues, guys. Like, you have to pick these guys up and play them in good matchups.
Absolutely. Now, this is their last good matchup for a little while, but I agree. Like, Jets, Zach Wilson, that poor guy. I think Crosby's just going to have a heyday, and it's going to be ugly. They racked up a lot of points the last 2 weeks on defense, and this is just a juicy matchup. So they're living up to it too. So yep. You can trust Las Vegas, I think, against the Jets this week. But then their little run of good defense, I think, is going to run out when they play Miami and then Kansas City and then a bye. So
probably
it's going to be a little rough. So
yeah, it's probably a little rough. But if you've got
get them while you can.
If you've got a roster spot or you're streaming every week, then definitely pick these guys up.
Yep, I like it. Alrighty, that's going to do it for our booms, busts, and streamers for Week 10. Before we log off of here, I'm just going to invite you one more time to go to fantasyfootballadvice.com and get signed up for the free social media network 100% dedicated to fantasy football, giving advice, getting advice, getting all kinds of content, and there's some tools on there for you to use. We're on there. How could you not want to interact with us, right? Get on there and friend me, Let's get to know each other. Anyways, that's going to do it for us this week, guys. Good luck in your Week 10 matchup, and we'll see you next time.
See y'all.